Afternoon, everyone. It is afternoon because it is right at noon. So I'm so excited to see all of you. I'm Mindy Binderman, the Executive Director of GEARS, the Georgia Early Education Alliance for Ready Students, and we're happy to be one of the hosts today for this town hall. As one of Georgia's 72,000 early educators and childcare professionals, you work with our babies and young children every day. That means you are our state's backbone and the ultimate authority on the current state of early childhood. Your voice matters when advocating for policies critical to your success, like increased CAPS funding and fair wages. This town hall is hosted by 23 organizations who are proud members of the Georgia Infant Toddler Coalition, a statewide network convened by GEARS. The coalition brings together actually over 140 individuals from more than 75 organizations committed to advancing the health and social, emotional, and cognitive well-being of Georgia's infants and toddlers. Together, we work across sectors to improve outcomes for young children and families and strengthen the systems that support them. Today is one example of that collaboration in action. The 23 organizations that are producing this town hall today have heard you already. We've seen your hard work and your loving dedication to your students. We've borne witness to your challenges, and every day we're at the Capitol under the Gold Dome lobbying on your behalf. We want to thank you for showing up today and for speaking up at this gathering. Even if you are a quiet participant, your presence today is felt. When we band together as a large unified community, our power can't be ignored. Your advocacy is more important than ever because the end of the legislative session in Georgia is quickly approaching. Sine Die this year is on April 2nd. And when we band together as a large unified community, our power cannot be ignored. So this is why it's so important. We just have a few more legislative days to make our priorities known and ensure that legislators hear from us. So first, I want to go over some quick tech. This is a webinar platform, which means that you can't do much chat. The chat is limited, but if you have specific questions, you can use the Q&A feature that you can find at the bottom of your screen. You can also turn on transcriptions, and the information is below. We'll be doing two raffles throughout the town hall, so we want you to stay, if you can, through the entirety of the 1 hour event, and hopefully you'll win a great prize. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of advocacy and how to advocate. We're going to provide updates on the legislative session and give you a few calls to action, meaning some concrete ways to make your voices heard. So with that, I am very happy to turn the next part of this over to my colleague, Ellen Cochran from Quality Care for Children.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Mindy. As Mindy said, my name is Ellen Cochran, and I am the president and CEO of Quality Care for Children. We are a statewide nonprofit that works directly with child care providers and families across Georgia to strengthen access to sustainable, high-quality child care. And so what I really want to do is kick us off today in understanding the state of where childcare is now. So we are going to use Slido. And would love for you all to answer the question, what is one word or short phrase to describe the state of childcare in Georgia right now? And you're gonna use this throughout the webinar this morning. So I want to take a few minutes, just a minute to describe how to do it. If you've never done it before, go ahead and either you can, in the chat, there is a link, or you can scan the QR code, which you see on your screen, or go to www.slido.com and use the code 27000. So if you could go there right now in whatever way you would like and go ahead and answer that question for us, what is one word or short phrase to describe the state of childcare in Georgia right now? Yeah, I am seeing that folks are putting it in the chat while they're working through some Slido. So I'm going to go ahead and raise up some of the ones that I'm seeing around, a critical state for childcare, troubled, that it's improving, um, but that we're stressed and precarious, sad, um, unpredictable. And I think that unpredictable, that stress really can sum up how I think a lot of you are feeling right now in this space. So throughout the year, as childcare advocacy organizations, we look for opportunities like today to hear from you about your experiences as providers working with your children, with your families, and with your staff to support access to high quality care. And what we really do in this space is look for issues or policy solutions or practices that we could really help and support as we think about our advocacy agenda moving forward. So one of the ways we do that at Quality Care for Children is that we have done an annual provider pulse check that we share with our advocates on this call. We do this every year, and our 2025 Child Care Provider Pulse Check really highlighted some of the issues that you may be dealing with that we see in some of the comments about what childcare is like for everyone right now. So in 2025, we saw that 50% reported having to raise tuition, fees, and 44% of them anticipated doing it again in this year. 63% saw increased wait lists, and concerning was to see that most of those wait lists were in our infant and our toddler communities. And one of the things we hear and I see in the chat is 75% of programs report capacity limitations due to teacher shortages. And so when we think about policy solutions, it's important for us to ground it in the experiences that you as providers are lifting up for us around where you need policy solutions and great implementation practices that we can support. So let's continue to hear from you. We will, of course, have another survey that will come out here in 2026. Those results will be out soon. But let's talk about what we can learn from you today. And so let's go to our next Slido and hope that it is working now. Again, use that QR code or join us at slido.com using the text 7200. So, what is your biggest concern as a childcare provider right now?
I'm so sorry. We're having some tech issues. Please continue to put the answers to that
I see
question
it.
in the
I
chat.
see it
Okay.
says, thank you, Jessica. It says that there is no active one right now. So we'll just continue
We're
to go through those. So, income to hire quality staff, that staffing challenge still exists. Money to provide great care, staffing, salaries. We see that continue to come up as some of the biggest challenges you are all having. Continue to put them in the chat if you have some things you want to raise up, because we want to make sure that we take this away as we move into our discussions around policy solutions. Declining enrollment, right? We have both wait lists and we have declining enrollment in classrooms. And we have to continue to think, and I see you all raising that up again, around educating our workforce in this space. How do we make sure that our teachers have the support they need to be the highest quality that they can be and continue to serve children? And so we want to tackle those. We want to think about what kinds of policy solutions, what are practices, what are innovative things happening in the field that we can all learn from. And so one things we'd like to do is take these with us as we talk about why advocacy, as you think about all these issues, is so important. So I'm going to turn it over to Kathy Mendez to talk and hear from you all a little bit more about advocacy, why we do this work, and why it's important.
Thanks, Ellen. I'm Kathy Mendez. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a senior policy associate with Caring Across Generations. We're a national campaign working to make care more affordable at every stage of life. And I'm going to lead us through a quick discussion on why advocacy is so important to making progress in the childcare and early learning space. I'm hoping that the Slido is working now. Okay, I think it's working. So the next question for you all is, why is advocacy important to you? Why is it important that early care and educational professionals advocate for themselves? And I'll wait for some folks to enter some things, and then we'll also hear from some providers themselves on this question, saying to like make sure our voices are heard and make sure that changes are made, um, making sure that the respect for the industry is happening, that the industry is valued, um, to speak loud for the smallest voices, inform policy change is a great one. Political leaders and community members need to know what's going on. That's another really great point. Telling your story is a really important piece of advocacy. While those are rolling in, I'm gonna call on one of our providers to share a little bit about why advocacy is important to them. First, Thais, lawyer from our house. Are you around?
I'm here.
All right, awesome. I'll turn it to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. You know, advocacy can be a lot like simply telling your story. If you are hard at work in this industry, you are working with the parents, you're working with the children, and your voice brings their need to life. A lot of the reasons you all put in the Slido around why advocacy are exactly the right things. Thanks to Gears over the last several years, I've had a lot of opportunity to speak at a lot of venues. And y'all, it's easy. I care about this work. I care about the people in this industry, staff, children, and parents, and being in a position to share the challenges, the barriers, and even some of the joys that those participants face gives me an even greater joy in this work. And it helps to inform decision makers. It helps them to understand what's happening out there in the real world. Yes, we can't have everything move forward the way we want, but every additional piece of information that we can bring to the table is a step in the right direction to achieving some of our shared goals.
Thank you so much, Thais. You're definitely echoing a lot of what's coming through in the chat. To get back to that for a moment, I'm also seeing, get additional resources for our families and children and the providers that care for them. Also seeing that it's important to tie childcare to larger issues being discussed in political and public spheres, which is a great point. It's really connected to all kinds of other supports that families and children need too. Next, I'll move on to Danielle Virgil. Danielle, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Great. Do you want to share a little bit about why advocacy is important to you?
Okay, hold on. Trying to get my advocates means standing up for paying leave for daycare workers, affordable child care for every family, including supporting for children with disabilities. As a provider, I believe all children deserve quality care. Parents need accessible opportunities, and providers must be fairly compensated for their work.
Great. Thank you so much, Danielle. Yeah, it's a really important piece you highlighted there too, that providers need to be fairly compensated with family sustaining wages and benefits, to make sure that they're central to this as well. Seeing more come through the chat, making my community a better place because I'm here. That's another really great point, kind of lending itself to the fact that we're all interconnected together and we're all in this fight together, and then we're also stronger together, and that's how we can make real policy change in our communities. And we can really focus in on our communities on the one particular thing we care about, and that is already doing a lot. All right, next I'll call up Stacy Neal. Stacy, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Awesome.
Okay.
Do you
Hello,
want to share?
everyone. Yes, my name is Stacy Neal, and I'm the owner and educator at Stacy Neal Family Childcare here in Hampton, Georgia. Every day, I have the privilege of caring and teaching young children during the most critical years of their development. In family child care setting, we do much more than supervise children. We build relationships, support social emotional growth, and prepare children for school and provide stability for working families. Application is deeply important to me because I firsthand see both the impact of quality early childhood education and the challenges providers and families face. One of the biggest challenges is the raising cost of operating a family child care program. The cost of food, learning materials, cleaning supplies, insurance, and utilities continue to increase. Providers also invest in ongoing training, licensing requirements, and maintaining safe learning environments, all while trying to keep tuition affordable to families. Limited resources also affect what we can offer. Many family child care providers work long hours with little access to benefits such as health insurance, paid leave, retirement support. Despite this, family child care programs are sometimes overlooked when policies and funding decisions are made. There's also a clear need for fair compensation and strong support for family child care educators. If we want to sustain high quality care and keep programs open, in our communities, providers must be recognized and supported as the professionals we are. Fair reimbursement rates, access to resources, and inclusions in decision makings are critical steps. When we invest in family child care, we're investing in child care, the children's future, supporting working families, and strengthening our communities. I am proud to advocate not only for my program, but for all early childhood educators and the children and families we strive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stacey. I heard so many great things from you, but also something I haven't named specifically yet is how critical family childcare providers are to the overall childcare system. Family childcare providers are able to meet families where they're at, are able to provide more culturally specific care, offer care outside of traditional hours, as you all know, but just want to highlight how critical y'all's work is in this. Great. And so I'll wrap us up with a couple more shouts out from the Slido. Excuse me. Saying more about like informing legislation. It's really important that our elected officials who work for us know what's really important to us. They don't always like have the ability to know everything about everything. And so that's why our advocacy is extremely important to make sure that we're lifting up the issues that are impacting their constituents the most. Great. Well, thank you so much to all of our providers for sharing about why advocacy is so important to all of you. I'm going to move us on to the first raffle. All right. So the first raffle goes to Jennifer Henderson. Congrats, Jennifer. You win a $50 gift card. Jennifer, if you're with us or not, they will be reaching out to you via your email address that you registered with. And so you'll be followed up with after the webinar. All right. I will pass it over to Ellen Reynolds to talk a little bit more about advocacy.
Well, thank you. We can affect advocacy, whether it is at the federal, state, or local level, and GEERS has done an exemplary job of that. But right now, today, we're going to focus on the state level. That's what's happening right now at session, and that's where we have a real opportunity to have a lot of impact. So the basics of the Georgia General Assembly. At the state level here in Georgia, much of the decision making takes place in or near the state capitol in Atlanta, affectionately called the Gold Dome. The legislative branch, which is also called the Georgia General Assembly, is made up of two houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives. The Senate has 56 members here in Georgia, representing a population of about 191,000 per senator, and the House is made up of 180 members, each representing a population of around 60,000. They're supposed to be the chamber that is closer to the people. You each have one representative and one state senator, and we really want to encourage you to look those up and get to know them, especially outside of session. For a bill to become law, the bill must be passed by both the House and the Senate, and then it must be signed by the governor within 40 days after the session ends. Georgia is considered to be a part-time legislature, meaning that they are only in session for the first 3 to 4 months of the year. For example, this year ending on April 2nd. The end of the legislation is also known as sine die. And this year is, sorry, that March 28th is from last year. I think it's this year it's going to end on April 2nd, which is only 2 weeks away. So we have a little over 2 weeks to impact the final decisions as they come out of the legislature. Also, it's really important to remember that advocacy is a marathon and not a sprint. One of my favorite sayings is that you may have to fight a battle more than once to win it, and never is that more true than down at the Capitol. Unfortunately, it takes time for policy change to happen. The urgency that you feel that something needs to happen right now doesn't match the pace of policy change down under the Gold Dome. However, each message and signature and action that you take gets us closer to our goal and moving that to the forefront of what legislators are thinking about. The other really important thing to know is that advocacy is built on relationships. As people get more involved and advocate, the full impact becomes clearer for policymakers to pass laws that support early educators and young children. So the better they know you, the better influence you're going to have, and the more likely we are to achieve our advocacy goals. Georgia has a record-breaking 11 billion in unrestricted reserves right now. I think we're moving on to the next slide. We don't like to call it a surplus because that would be implying that we are meeting the needs of all the people in the state when we don't come close. For just as a small example, we're only serving around 15% in caps of the children who are eligible. We believe that state leaders should utilize some of these reserves to significantly increase the investment in childcare. And with that, I'm happy to turn it over to Jessica.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Wolgen. I am the Senior Policy Manager for Early Childhood Education at GEERS, and super excited to put some of those advocacy tips into action that you just heard about from Ellen. And so you heard at the top from Mindy, who's the Executive Director of GEERS, that we are all members of the Georgia Infant Toddler Coalition. And so every 2 years, the coalition actually identifies shared policy priorities. And the policy priorities that we have for the 2025-2026 cycle are actually up here on the screen. And if Caitlin, if you wouldn't mind pressing enter twice, you'll see here that, oh, go back one more. Sorry. You'll see here at the top in white are our kind of legislative priorities. And so those are things that only the Georgia General Assembly really has a big influence over, and they have the ability to change. And so as you heard Ellen say, we're very quickly approaching the end of legislative session. And so we are going to focus more on these top 4 priorities, which include establishing a child care trust fund, creating a dedicated facilities grant program, adding the child care workforce as a CAPS priority group, and then allocating additional significant CAPS funding to restore access to 2023 levels. And then those administrative priorities, which really are the Georgia Department of Early Care and Learning is in charge of changing. We're going to actually ask you for your feedback on those via the follow-up survey. We are going to start as a group working on our shared priorities for the next cycle very soon. And so we really are hoping to get some feedback on these priorities, give you updates on kind of where these things are, and then also give you an opportunity to take action on some of these more pertinent opportunities that we see in the legislative session. And so with that, I will turn it over to Shelley.
Thanks, Jessica. Hey, everyone. I'm Shelley Mazer. I'm the Vice President of Advisory and State Policy at the Low Income Investment Fund. I'm super excited to be here. Appreciate being a part of this coalition and have a chance to talk to you. Just as a quick background, Low Income Investment Fund has a vision that everyone live in a community of equity, opportunity, and well-being, and we work on bringing funding and capital to affordable housing and childcare facilities. So we've been partnering with Gears and the Infant Toddler Coalition for the last couple of years on the one of the priorities Jessica mentioned, the Child Care Facilities Fund. So you all know that facilities where you're working and caring for children are often overlooked, but they're a really critical part of providing quality childcare. And as we've talked to providers across the state, and really honestly across the country, we've heard that it's just not possible to afford the cost of expanding or upgrading spaces, impacting not only your programs, but also the families you're serving and by extension, the broader local economy. So to address that this year, we worked to introduce SB 554, which would create a grant program to help licensed providers repair, renovate, or expand their childcare facilities. The legislation would prioritize those participating in Georgia's pre-K or in CAPS, also prioritizing high-need areas like rural communities. So what would it make possible? It would mean you could address major things like HVAC systems, roofs. You could make health and safety upgrades, or you could convert existing spaces into licensed childcare. So this session, it was pretty exciting. The bill was heard in committee, and although it didn't move forward, this was a big, it was a big step to have a committee hearing on it. And we appreciate all of the providers who came and testified in support of the bill. So as we continue to advocate for the creation of this grant program, we really would love to lift up the real facility needs facing providers across Georgia. So that starts with hearing directly from you. So I think, are we still going to be able to go back to the Slido, Jessica? Yes.
Yep.
Looking at, cool. Okay. So looking at this question, what facility improvements would make the biggest difference for your program and the families you serve? I see in the chat also people are answering. Someone would add a pre-K classroom. Love that. We know there's lots of areas across the state where there's a lot of economic activity and a shortage of childcare spaces. And so adding those classrooms would be huge. Playground upgrades as well. That is something we hear all the time. People want to upgrade their outdoor space and make it fun, engaging, safe, have shade structures, bathrooms, absolutely for family childcare. I hear you. Kitchens, yep. HVAC, more classrooms, steps. I mean, these are all critical, important pieces, not only for safety and health, but also for your comfort as you're caring for kids and for the comfort of the kids you're caring for. So thank you so much for sharing these. Will absolutely take these in. And I think particularly, I see family childcare listed in there. Gears has been gathering the voices of childcare providers about their needs. If you're a family childcare provider and you're willing to share your story, please let us know. Because we'd love to feature you as we continue to talk to the legislature. All right, I think that's it for me.
And so Danny is next.
Great. Well, I'm Danny Canso with the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute, and we are grateful to be a partner here and for all the amazing work that y'all are doing. And so I will just give a shout out up front to my colleague, Ife Finch-Floyd, who's no longer with the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute and is now with the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities out of DC, but was really integral to this policy concept that she and I worked on together, and really to establish a child care trust fund. And the thinking here is that we need to bring on a new sustained source of revenue that can power the investments for childcare that we all care about so much. And we need to do this in a way that matches both our own state framework and policy environment, but also follows best practices that we've seen across the country. And so I want to note that although this legislative session, we have seen some policy progress. We have seen legislation introduced that would establish a dedicated child care trust fund through the Constitution. We've also seen another measure to create what's called the Dream Scholarship. For a needs-based higher education scholarship. And that took a very similar concept. So that took $325 million out of surplus funds to be able to sustain what is similarly a trust fund for needs-based aid. So now, even in Georgia, this isn't such a novel concept. And that progress with the Dream Scholarship, which has already been signed into law by the governor under the amended 2026 budget, is something that we can and should build on in future years by turning our attention to childcare. And so basically, this idea is taking a lump sum of money. As we heard, we still have really large surplus revenues in Georgia, unspent revenues that have stacked on top of each other from year to year that make this a continued possibility. So some of that has been spent down in 2026. Much of that remains available for future lawmakers to dedicate. And so basically, this would work similar to a 401k, where we take a dedicated amount of revenue and we use that to invest in and to be able to build a return that then would create a recurring stream of revenue that can pay for these investments in child care. And so, for example, if we took $1.5 billion, just a fraction of the surplus, that would be able to raise over $100 million every year in new revenue. And so New Mexico is a state that has done this, is a really strong model where they took this funding and now have built on that, have added not only the one-time funding, but a recurring source of revenue. So this is something where, again, we saw the recommendation put forward by the 2024 Study Committee on Child Care, where really this was the only recommendation that we saw for them to create a new recurring source of funding. So it's been proposed on a bipartisan basis in that way, and this is something that we want to strongly build on because we think that really this is kind of one of the lowest hanging, easiest ways that we can bring online a new recurring source of revenue that could really almost immediately double our state's investment in childcare if we can get that trust fund amount at the right level. So with that, I will turn it back to Jessica. But again, really appreciate y'all's engagement and partnership on these critical issues.
Thank you, Danny. And I will turn it over to Michelle.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelle Smith-Lank, and I'm the owner and director of Kids World Learning Center in Statesboro, Georgia, and also the president of Georgia Child Care Association. We know that across the state that child care programs are facing a significant challenge when it comes to hiring and retaining staff. And I know that is something that all of you are probably experiencing firsthand. We have low wages, limited benefits, and high demands of work that are making it very difficult to sustain a stable and qualified workforce at this time. And these pressures not only impact our programs, but ultimately they're affecting the children and the families that rely on consistent, high quality care. While we organize that comprehensive and sustained investment in early educator compensation, we know that that is critical. We've also been looking at opportunities within our existing systems to provide more immediate support. One such support that has emerged is the inclusion of the early childhood education workforce as a priority group within the Georgia Child Care and Parent Services, or CAPS program. The early education workforce includes a disproportionately high number of individuals who are also parents and caregivers of young children. In fact, 7,500 early educators in Georgia have children under the age of 6. So as you know, CAPS recipients right now have to currently meet income requirements and also be a part of a designated priority group due to limited funding. But by adding early child educators as this priority group, something that 12 other states already have implemented, we could ensure that Georgia early educators have access to affordable childcare for their own children. And while this proposal has not moved forward during this legislative session, it remains an important part of the bigger, broader conversation around how we can better sustain the early childhood workforce. And we know that that is just one piece of a bigger picture. So really right now, we want to hear directly from you. So we have some engagement. And if you'll join the Slido QR code and take a moment to rank your top priorities that are on the screen. Your options include providing ongoing compensation supplements, expanding access to child care for staff, such as CAPS eligibility, providing health insurance and paid leave, expanding training and career pathways, or offering tax credits for educators. And we're going to give you a moment to submit all of those responses. So think about range it the highest of what could better support your workforce and what that should be. We thank you all for putting in your input. What we see here, providing compensation benefits, some that's going back and forth, some tax credits, it's going back and forth. That really reinforces what we're hearing across the state, that supporting the workforce really requires a multifaceted approach, addressing both compensation and critical supports. Your feedback is incredibly valuable, and it really helps us to inform ongoing conversations with policymakers, and it helps us put effort that is focused on these issues. So we really appreciate that. And now I will turn it over to Ms. Tatiana.
Hello, everyone. I am Tatiana Elmore, president of Black Child Development Institute Atlanta. We are a nonprofit statewide organization that supports families through community resources. And today I'm going to talk to you about an update on CAPS. So we are going to focus right now on Georgia's Child Care and Parent Services CAPS program, which provides working families considered low income with scholarships to help them afford childcare. As an existing program, increased funding for CAPS is one of the most politically viable, concrete ways that we can increase investment in childcare at the state level. Next slide, please. As you likely know, federal relief funding is help to bolster the CAPS program. Yes, thank you, correct slide. Increasing the number of children served, also covering the cost to families while increasing reimbursement rates to the providers' published rates. Next slide, please. We're next going to look at some policy updates from DeKalb. To attrition back to 51,000 children served, DeKalb decreased the initial income eligibility and the income eligibility for the very low income priority groups. I do want to note, earlier this month, DeKalb announced that initial income eligibility has increased from 40% to 50% of the state median income, which is what it was prior to the pandemic. The very low income priority group has increased from 30% to 50% of the federal poverty level. This means that a family of four has to make less than $16,500 annually to qualify solely based on income. Although we are appreciative that the income eligibility has increased, the reality is that one, we are still only serving around a fraction of income eligible working families now. And two, families above these thresholds are struggling to afford care. The reality is this comes down to funding. Next slide. As we are aware, CAPS funding is primarily funded through the Child Care and Development Block Grant, known as CCDBG. This is a federal program with a required state match and opportunity for additional state support. The state meets the required match and has made modest targeted investments in recent years. Most recently, $9.3 million in 2024 and $4.7 million in 2025. Next slide, please. We're going to take a brief look at how the budget process works. So currently, the process includes state funding for CAPS is determined through Georgia's annual budget, which is the General Assembly must pass each year. I want to briefly go over how the state budget process works. So as we look at the chart here, at the beginning of the legislative session, the governor releases his recommendations for the upcoming fiscal year budget. The fiscal year runs from July 1 to June 30th. Starting with the House, legislators review the governor's recommendation and draft the appropriations bill. Once the bill passes in the House, it is considered by the state. This is where the budget currently is in the process, as you see on the chart here. Guess what? This means even with only a few weeks left in session, there is still time for us to make our voices heard. So we're going to give you a few things to keep in mind as it relates to the budget. First, even if you don't participate in CAPS, the budget is a moral document. It's a reflection of our state's priority. Second, there is often a perception that funding isn't available for issues like childcare, but that's not the case. Georgia currently has over $11 billion in unrestricted reserves. So the question isn't whether the resources exist, it's how they are prioritized. Next, you'll learn some action steps from Ms. Maisa Williams-Foote. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Maisa Williams-Foote with the Georgia Association for Education of Young Children, better known as GACE, and we are an affiliate of NACE. I also serve with the Council for Professional Recognition, also known as the CDA Council, and I'm really excited about today. So thankful to Gears for allowing us to be one of the co-sponsors. I'm here for Georgia, and as a Georgia resident, I feel really connected to this work. So if you want to learn more about the GACE policy agenda, please visit our website at gace.org. And if you want to learn more about the council's policy agenda, please visit cdacouncil.org. I'm going to talk about where CAPS is now. The House included $9.7 million in lottery funds to support CAPS scholarships for before and after school care for eligible children enrolled in Georgia's pre-K program. While lottery funds generally cannot be used for CAPS, this approach will allow other funds to be redirected to better serve other CAPS eligible children, such as those in foster care or with disabilities. Although this is a great step forward, we are very excited about this. It is not enough when we have a $188 million, and I'll say that again, a $188 million gap in funding and have lost more than 20,000 slots. Many other states, as you'll see at the bottom of the slide, including Alabama, Louisiana, and Kentucky, have recently invested significantly more funding in their child care programs. Now is time to take action. We are not here to just talk about the challenges, we're here to do something about the challenges. Every additional dollar that goes to early child education is an investment in our country's recovery and its future. The link in the chat, please check the chat, makes it easy for you to directly contact your elected officials by putting in your address. There is a sample message in there that you have the choice to personalize as well, if you would like, with just a couple of clicks, the same amount of time it takes you to order your Starbucks. You can make a huge difference. You can also call your legislators. Please go to the link in the chat and fill out our action alert right now. Consider personalizing your message by sharing how important programs like CAPS are to you, the families you support, and also how it supports the affordability and accessibility of childcare. And if applicable, you can share how it positively impacts your family and children. How the end of improvements made through relief increased reimbursement rates, as they did, and the number of children served. Remember, we lost 20,000 slots. So this will impact families in your program, including whether or not you accept CAPS. So even if you don't accept CAPS, let's be an advocate and a champion for those that do by filling out and clicking on that link. So we have the Take Action link in the chat. And I'm going to stop talking to give you a few minutes to fill out the action alert. So please feel free to ask questions via the Q&A feature. And I will pass this along to my colleague, Erica Stevens.
Thank you so much, Maisa. It's actually going to be me. Erica's having some Wi-Fi issues. Yes, please go to the link in the chat, and we'll also include it in the follow-up. As I already mentioned, this is a really critical time, and so in the legislative process, and so we really want as many notes as possible to go to our legislators. And with that, we really want to think about going forward. What policies would you like to see us advocate for? Ellen mentioned earlier, advocacy is a marathon and not a sprint, and we realize that many of the things we've talked about today are obviously not going to solve all the challenges that are facing families and educators and directors and communities across the state as it relates to childcare. And so we would love to hear from you via the Slido about kind of what you would like to see us advocating for going forward. As I've already mentioned, we are relooking at our policy priorities, and all of us on this call are very much in it for the long haul. And so we want to hear from you about what other things you'd like to see us advocate for. And so I'm seeing up here additional CAP slots. Love it. Trust fund, safe spaces for children, amazing supplemental compensation for staff and tax relief for providers. Great tax credits. I'm glad to see that some of the things mentioned are really resonating with folks. Teachers eligible for CAPS. Great. A pathway for childcare workers to get approved for CAPS more quickly. That's a really great point, and goes to some of those potential barriers of it's not just eligibility, but it's really some of those, the paperwork and the processes can prevent folks from being able to access these critical supports. Changing eligibility requirements for CAPS, TCC, technical college certificate scholarships for teachers, stipends compensation for non-Georgia pre-K teachers. Yes, those infant toddler teachers in particular. Inclusive classrooms with in-house therapy. Yes, we know, more and more providers are really trying to support children with disabilities across the state. And so really thinking about what that looks like. State insurance for our teachers. I'm guessing health insurance, supplemental income for staff. Great. Quicker approval. Amazing. Well, keep putting those answers in the Slido. This question is also included in the follow-up survey. So if you have an idea that comes to you later on and you want to make sure we know about it, please make sure to fill out that follow-up survey. And with that, I am going to throw it over to Frances with 9 to 5.
All right. Thank you, Jessica. Hello, everyone. My name is Frances Gillison. Are you guys still with us? Give me a thumbs up or some reaction and let me know. And before we close, we want to just share a few additional ways you can take action, okay? So first, thank you to those who have already filled out the action alert. Another simple way to really share why childcare matters. Now, we can also do this on social media, and we're going to do this by using the hashtag Georgia Needs Childcare. Again, hashtag Georgia Needs Childcare. Your voice helps raise awareness and builds momentum. Now, the second thing is we want to invite you to share your story. The organization is hosting a today's call or a commitment to creating more opportunities to providers and educators and families to really be heard. And they're doing that by launching the Georgia Needs Child Care Story Initiative, where you can share your experience through a short audio or a video. It takes about 20 minutes. You can choose how you share your story. This can also, for a small token of your appreciation, we're going to give you a $10 Amazon gift card. Now, these stories are incredibly important in helping policymakers understand the real impact of childcare. And finally, this is an election year in Georgia. Every state legislator and statewide leader, like the governor, will be on the ballot. Engaging in this nonpartisan voter education with your network is another way to make sure your voice is heard. So we want to make sure that you're talking to your colleagues, your family members, and community about childcare and why it matters. And we really want you to encourage them to stay informed. All right, so for the final raffle, you guys ready? Drum roll, please. And the winner is Shaylin Fairby. Shaylin, are you with us? Congratulations. You are our final winner. You have a prize for a $50 gift card to your choosing, any major brand, Visa, Walmart, Amazon, Kroger, etc. It will be sent to your email and that you use to register, and we will follow up with them after this webinar. Again, thank you all. So as we get ready to close out, just thank you again, and now we need you to tell your friends and your colleagues to really take action. You've done the work, share that link with your friends. And I will, as Mindy said earlier, when we band together as a large and unified community, it's powerful. So we cannot be ignored. And the second thing we want to do is we hope that this is just the start of what advocacy looks like in your advocacy journey. And in this, we're going to follow up with the email that you received. And in addition to the storytelling initiatives, we'll be providing you with a list of many resources and opportunities from different co-hosts that you heard earlier today. We would like to give you the opportunity to share any additional feedback that you may want to give us from today's town hall, and for you to provide insight into other policy priorities and how you want to engage in the future. So when this meeting ends, the survey will pop up and on the screen. And finally, just want to say thank you again for all the work that each of you are doing every day. We truly appreciate you and everything that you're doing to really set our youngest learners up for success. Thank you again.